I've been using Procreate Dreams for about a week now since it first came out. I've really enjoyed the application. I don't think it would take the place of Blender Grease Pencil for me, but I can see the two of them working well together, especially for frame-by-frame animation. In this video, I want to show me recreating a scene from Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse, and I'll use that example as a walkthrough to show you the workflow in Procreate Dreams. So this will kind of cover all the basics you need to get started. So on the screen now, you can see a final polished frame from that animation. So this will be a really rough walkthrough of recreating that, and I'll go ahead and show that clip now. So if you found this video helpful, if so, please like and subscribe, and let's get started. Okay, so this is what Procreate Dreams looks like when you first open it. There'll be 3 sample projects, and you see I've got a couple in here I've been playing with. So to start a new project, you just click the plus button here, and this will give you some templates to choose from. I'm going to go with the widescreen version. And if you click these 3 dots here, you can change the frames per second and the duration. And then if you click 4K, you can change the resolution here. I'll leave mine as is and click draw. And this will take you into a new project. So you see the name here, Dreams 4. This is the name of this project. If I click on that, it'll give me some properties that I can choose from. So here I can revise my frames per second, the duration, and the width and the height if I want to. Click on stage, it gives an onion skin option. Timeline, we can choose when you play the timeline if it just stops, which is where it is now with one shot. Ping pong, which means it goes to the end and then comes back to the front and then back to the end and then back to the front. And the loop, it just goes to the end and starts back at the beginning again. If you click on share, that gives you the options of how to export the video. So you can export it as a video, you can export as frames, you can export just one frame, the current frame, you can export the actual Procreate Dreams file. There's also some custom settings here where you can change the video codecs and some audio settings. And you click on preferences and it gives you some options such as which side your brush and opacity sidebar on, and you'll see those when I get to the main interface. Dynamic scaling, you can turn that on and off, and what that means is the brush will scale depending on you zooming in and out of the canvas. There's also some other options such as add keyframe at start, enable painting with fingers, so you can go through those. And I'm going to click on stored undo steps. Mine are at 100. I'm going to leave that there, but you can change that. And then help will take you to the help option. So we'll hit done here, and we'll leave all that unchanged. If I click here, this will take me back to my theater. That's what this is called. So this is where your projects are stored, similar to the gallery in Procreate. So we'll click back on my new project. So here are our modes. We have play mode, performance mode, and this is a animation type mode. It's where you can draw, and then if you move the object around, it will animate in the timeline. Here's a properties option, which allows us to do different things to the canvas. Here's our draw option, which allows you to draw on the canvas, and we'll be using that most of the time. And then here is the plus button. You can add new tracks, photos, videos, text, or additional files. So for this one, I want to start by adding a photo. And we'll add this photo here. Click on that to select it, hit add. Now if I come out of draw mode and I click on this, you can see that I get these bars around the edges, these dots. So I can resize this if I click and drag. And one thing I want to note is that if you click on these 3 dots, you get some additional options such as flip horizontal, flip vertical, and edit anchor. Edit anchor, if I go back out, you can see as I pull on this, it's pulling from the center, and you can see that X. If I go to edit anchor, I can then move this anchor. Say I put it to the corner, hit done, and then if I try to scale it now, it scales at that corner. So I'm going to go back and hit edit anchor again and move that back to the middle. Hit done. I want to scale this out. Okay, I want to click back on my draw mode. You can see where I added that. It had another drawing already enabled for when I created this project. So if I don't want that, I can hold my finger against that and have some options such as cut, copy, delete, rename, highlight, blend mode, mask, track options. And if I click track options, you can see I have show all, hide all, copy, duplicate, paste. Then I can delete content. Instead of deleting it, I want to click and hold it, and I want to drag it up to the track above my background. So now I can draw on that track. So now I know this only needs to be here for a couple of seconds. So I'm going to click and hold on the end, and you see I get this red mark. I can drag down to where I want that to stop and let go. I'm going to click and do the same thing to the top drawing, and you can see it snaps there. So now I'm going to click on the background, and I'll go here to layers, and I can click in, and this is very similar to regular Procreate. So you have all these options about the layer like darken, color, blur. I'm just going to pull the opacity down a bit. So now I'm going to click on the top layer, and that means it's selected. And now you can see that I can draw on this. And here's my tools up here. I have a draw tool, a smudge tool, an erase tool, and then my layer options. So if I click on my draw tool, I have inking selected and technical pen. Over here to the left, you can see I have the brush increase and decrease, and then I have opacity increase or decrease. And that's a setting in the preferences where if you wanted that to this side, you could do that. So I'm going to click erase, and I'm going to erase this. But I could also use 2 fingers to undo, so I can undo those strokes. Or I can hit 3 fingers to redo them. So I'm going to erase those. Okay, another thing I can do that if you see this line right here, I don't really have enough room to draw. If I grab that and bring it down, I go into Flipbook mode. And then I can take my finger and pull this over. And this is where my frames are. So I can go through my frames here without having to go back to the timeline. So I'm going to draw my first pose real quickly, and then I'll show you some other things like onion skinning. So again, this is going to be rough, and I'm really worried more about the shape than anything. I can take my 2 fingers and pinch and spread this out here. And also I'll probably speed this up when I'm drawing. Now if I scroll out, I think he's probably too big and too long. To get a Flipbook mode, you can just grab this and pull it down. You can see I'm back in the timeline. So if I turn off drawing mode and I click on him, you can see I now have a bounding box. So I can bring him up a little bit. I can bring this down. I can also squat him down a little bit. I'll drag him back. So go back to the Flipbook. I can click draw and bring this back down. To add another frame, I click on here and add plus. Now if I go back to the timeline, you can see I've got this another frame here. This frame is too long, so if I click that and hold it, I can bring it over. And that's 1 frame. So if I touch that edge, I can extend that to 2 frames. So I notice in the environment, things like the trucks are animated on 1s, which means every frame they could move. But I notice Spider-Man's on 2s, which means he holds the same pose for 2 frames, not 1 frame. So I want these frames to be on 2s. So I'm going to click and drag the new frame and bring it over here. Now I've got that on 2s. So I'm going to select that frame, go back into Flipbook mode, and now I can't see the drawing. So if I click down here on this counter, I can click on Show Onion Skinning. So I want to come out of this real quick and show you something else. So I've got this new frame. If I click on that and hit plus, I've got 3 frames now. You can see that here, but 2 of them are blank. So if I go back to Flipbook, if I draw on this frame, so I've got onion skinning on. If I go back to that middle frame, now you can see onion skinning is showing me the future frame and the past frame. So if I click on here and go to edit onion skinning, you can see backwards and forwards here. Backwards is currently purple. You can see that. And I can change how many frames it goes back. We don't have any right now previous to this, so you can't see any other ones. I can change the opacity. I can change the color. So I'll go with red so I know it's the old frame. Then if I click on forwards, I can change the color of the next frame. And currently it's yellow. I'll change that to blue and I'll reduce the opacity a bit. So that's our onion skinning works. And again, you can change the opacity of the frames, the colors here, forwards and backwards. So I'm going to click to come out of that. So I'm going to go back to that frame, go to the erase tool and erase this. Okay, there's the frame. I'm going to go to the next one. And clearly I've got some kind of mark in here. So if I click on my layers, I can hit clear and that'll take that mark away. So actually I want to skip ahead to the 3rd frame. And again, if I pull this down, you can see I'll click that. And I want the next frame because he's planting his foot on the side of the truck. So I want to be able to see that. Actually, if I go back, I think he is too small here. So I'm going to go back to my timeline, undo that, click on him. expand him a bit. I'm going to go back to draw mode, click on the drawing, go down. So I'm drawing this one first because I want to show him planting his foot here and then the rest of his body, and then I'll know the arc that his hips, his knees, his head, and his arms need to go in to follow through to that pose. And I'll show you what that means in a second. So his head is doing this. Which means his hands are doing this. And now this web is connected way over here somewhere. So the webbing won't be close together here because they're extending to another point, which would be like, working in perspective. So I'm going to add the webbing here. So you can see how that goes off frame. So his hands will be here. So his body's really extending to reach out to that. Okay, so there's that pose. So if I go back, I can now see in onion skinning my future pose and my previous pose. So now I know how the head's supposed to be in the hands. I can see the hips. So now it's kind of easy for me to fill in the other areas. Okay, so with the Flipbook, I can drag and see that. I can turn off onion skinning. So I'm going to turn back on onion skinning and I can see that web. So I'm going to come back to this one, bring that off camera. This one. I'm going to click on this and hit plus, and then I'll click on this one and hit plus. Then I'll go back into my timeline. I'm going to click and drag this one out and over. And I'll click on this one and drag it out. So now it's on 2s. I'm going to skip this frame and go back to the timeline. I'll go to onion skinning, make sure it's on. And see, I don't see a lot of my previous ones. So I'm going to click on edit onion skinning. I'll bring this frame forward. You can see that. And I'm going to do the same for this one. Okay, so on this one, he's already planted his foot. So you can see it's touching here, which means his heel would be here. So his leg's going to be forward, and it's kind of behind the edge of that truck. So I'll see that. And then this leg is swinging up. So it's coming forward here. You see that foot's not quite touching it yet. Okay, now I need to go back. Now you can see my onion skinning between those two. So he's in between putting his weight down here and letting go. So he's kind of in free fall, not free fall, but he's kind of loose right here in between these two. You can see I've got a straight mark somewhere on here, so I can hit this again. Clear, there it goes. So now I know his head is coming like this, so he's kind of back. So at this point, he's let go of the web. And this foot's starting to plant, so I need to make sure it's lined up here, but he's not putting weight on it yet. I think his head's going to be too big, but I can fix all that in the polish stage. So now if I scroll through here, so another thing you can do is while I'm in this mode, if I take 4 fingers, I can go into view mode, and then I can touch here and it'll show me my play options. So let me play this again. You can see what that looks like. So I want to come out of this, touch 4 fingers. Now I'm going to go to my timeline. I want to click on Dream 4 to bring up my preferences. And I'm going to go to timeline and turn this to loop. Click done, 4 fingers, hit play. So you can see what that looks like. 4 fingers to get out. So I know this is 2 seconds, and in the movie, the truck is moving forward while he's doing this. So I'm going to go down to the end, and I'm going to click on the playhead, and I'm going to click move, and I'm going to click move and scale. So I'm not going to move anything yet, but it did set a keyframe for me. So So this is the keyframe symbol. And if I pull that up, now I've got the clapboard back. But if I pull it across, you can see I now have a keyframe there. So I'm going to go to the end. I'm going to click on that to set a keyframe. Then I'll pull it back up and drag it to the side. Now you can see I have my move and scale options, but I don't really want to use that. So with the keyframe selected, and see how it's black and red here, if I drag over a keyframe, it turns white. So now I can grab this and bring it out a bit. And now, if I hit play, you see it's kind of moving. Now the problem with this is, if you watch, it eases in and eases out, and that's not how the truck would be moving. It would be moving at a constant speed. So I'm going to pause this. Now if I hold between two keyframes, you can see this kind of gray, light gray area here. If I hold between that, then I have my easing options. So currently I have, if I set all easing, you can see that highlighted that red. It's currently ease in and ease out. But if I click linear, and now drag the playhead back and hit play, you can see the truck's moving at a constant speed. Now it probably could move more than that. So I'm going to go back and you see now my keyframe is white again. So I'm going to bring that out a little bit more. Then I'll drag this up to get the playhead and hit play. And you can see the truck's moving. So that's how you create keyframes in Dreams, and then how you adjust the easing. So I'm going to click on my drawing, and I'm going to click on draw mode, and I'm going to go back to the drawing layer. And I realized in the original, he's actually leaning a bit more, like he's still working to get his balance. So let me bring this over, and the head's still going to be about right here, but he's going to kind of be looking down. Okay, so if I go back to my timeline, I play through this. So the next pose is him jumping up. So before I show you that, I want to show you that if I hold and click on this keyframe, I can duplicate this if I want. You see it adds it to the timeline. So if I had him, say he was running in the next pose, I could duplicate that pose. I could touch it and move it forward if I wanted to. And if I wanted to rotate it, I could click this box. You see I get this little round thing. This little round curve. I can then adjust him. So say how he was running and then coming over. I could duplicate that frame and have that motion. See how that looks? Then I could go back to draw mode, say move that arm, bring it up higher. So that's how you duplicate a frame if you just want to kind of adjust a pose, but it's still very similar to the previous pose. So I'm going to click on that and hold again. And I can also copy that and choose somewhere else to put it if I want to paste it, or I can just cut and remove that one. So in addition to duplicating that frame, I can duplicate a whole track. So if I click and hold on this one, I can go to track options, and I can duplicate that track and it'll add it above that one. If I wanted to grab it, I could put my finger on it and hold it and bring it down and add it to the back of this track. You can also hold the track, hit delete contents. Additionally, these frames are actually separate, even though they're on the same track. If I want to group them together, this is the timeline edit, and I can take my pencil and drag across these, and you see they're highlighted now. If I want to create a group out of these, I can go to group mode, click group, and now I have a single group. But if I click on this arrow, you can see there's my keyframes within that group. Then I can affect the entire group by moving it around. I can change the blend mode of the group, so I could hit darken. I can also ungroup. I can hide all, show all. I can highlight that track. So highlight, I can change the highlight again to purple. I can change it to none. I can also hold this and change the name of the group. So I can change it to Spider-Man. Hit done. So now you can see that there. So I'll show you real quick the performance option. So to do this, I want to click on Dreams and I want to go to Properties. And I want to change the duration to a minute and 10 seconds. Hit Done. So now you can see how much longer our time frame is. So I want to click on here and I'm going to draw the Green Goblin really, really roughly. So do not hold me to this, but this is just for an example. So I'm going to go to Flipbook mode and I want to draw this really quickly. Okay, there's my really rough Green Goblin. I feel like I could have done better, but here we are. And now if I grab him, I can click on Performance and I can drag him around and you can see my timeline's moving. Okay, so I'm going to click on this background and bring his way out so we can see that. So now I'm going to click this one, the Spider-Man one, and turn that off. So you see this checkbox here. Now I'm going to play this. You can see what happened. I'm also going to click on onion skinning and turn it off. So you can see it recorded me moving it. And there's a lot of options for this. You can warp stuff and move it that way. You can make changes to it and then it'll record all that. So this is a really interesting way of working. I don't know that I would use it that much. I have seen people do things like move butterflies around who already have an animation on them. And then when they animate the butterfly moving around, the wings still go with it. So it's kind of an animation within an animation and it works really well. So I just want to show you that. And then I'll go back to my Spider-Man poses. I'll draw those in and then I'll show you the end result. I probably won't time lapse this. And then once I do that, I may clean up a pose. You can see what that would look like cleaned up. So I'll be right back.
6 months later.
Okay, I'm back. That didn't quite take 6 months, but it certainly felt like it. So I'm going to play you the very rough draft of the animation now. And again, here's the first frame polished and colored. So ideally, I would go through and take all those rough poses and I would lock those. Then I'd put a layer on top of it. Then I would outline the figure again, much cleaner this time. And then beneath that, I would add another track. And on that track, I'd have the color. That way the color is beneath the line art. And that process probably wouldn't take that long. I think this was a total of maybe 12 to 14 poses. So I would just have to go through and color that and redraw it. But the hardest part to me is getting the animation down. Now, granted, this was much easier because I was actually watching something that was animated. So all the timing and everything had already been figured out. So it'd be a little more difficult if you were watching a live person using that as your inspiration. And I've got another video where I did that in Blender Grease Pencil. I had a man throwing a boomerang and I converted that into a Batman animation. So check that out. But I really just wanted to use this as a vehicle to provide a workflow overview for anyone looking to get into Procreate Dreams. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If so, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.